Number one, you follow a really strict diet and you can't follow it for a long period of time. So you start a diet, you do it for a few days, and then slowly you start resorting back to foods that you used to have. The truth is, the way you're going to hit your goals is not by following a super, super strict diet. All you need is something you can follow for months on end starting today. And this is really important. A lot of people get involved in this whole thing of, I'm going to follow a really strict diet, going from 0 to 100. And maybe they do it for a day, 3 days, 5 days, but maybe even a week. But these things never last for months, and that's why you don't see progress in the long term. Maybe you see progress for that week that you have this diet, but it never goes beyond that. Let's say right now you're eating 3,500 calories a day, which is probably for most of you guys, if you are eating this much, it'd be well over your maintenance. You might be eating pizza, donuts, and all this sort of stuff, all this junk food, right? Do you really think that if I told you now to eat 2,200 calories and no junk food, you could flip a switch and completely change everything overnight for months on end? The truth is, this is not possible, right? The answer is most likely no. Now, of course, compromises need to be made. However, the goal being consistency, we're not going to make crazy compromises in the first few weeks. This is really important. You shouldn't be trying to make these huge compromises in the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even potentially the first month. Okay, what we want to do is make sure that we can sustain whatever we are currently doing. So maybe your goal is, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drop 200 calories today. And then over the next week, I'm going to be 500 calories down. And then over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to cut it back even more. Your body slowly gets used to this. And what I help people do is change their diet in a way that's sustainable for a long period of time. And you need to be able to do this for yourself. If you are not able to have a diet that you can follow consistently for months on end, you are not going to make progress. Okay, and it just makes sense. It makes sense. If you cannot follow whatever diet you've given yourself, of course, you're not going to see those results in the long term. And the problem is, people take it to an extreme really quickly. They'll watch a video and they'll go, okay, now what I need to do is cut out every single thing bad that I eat. I need to drop 1,000 fucking calories. No, like maybe cut 300 calories a day, and then next week, okay, cool, now we're gonna do 600, and things become more realistic as you slowly integrate into your life. And I'll give you an example. When I was cutting out carbs, when I was trying to cut like all my fat and basically shred, I'd been eating like 3,000 calories a day for a long time. And so when I went to do this, I needed to be eating like 2,300. But I was so used to eating this, like the same foods every single day. Like I'd eaten the same meals every day for like years, or like at least a year, right? So I couldn't do it. Like I could not cut back that much. And I remember like one day I cut out a bunch of like rice from one of my meals. I cut back like a bunch of shit. And then the next day I ended up having a fuck ton of calories because I just felt the need to eat so many calories the next day because I didn't have anything the day before. So these extreme cuts can actually harm you because you end up having to just go back and you end up in this cycle. So what I'd recommend is being very slow and methodical with how you do this. Number 2, you don't do 10,000 steps a day at least, okay? And the truth is, you probably live a sedentary lifestyle. Maybe you work from home, maybe you work in an office. And the thing is, most people nowadays, they work from home, right? And if you don't work from home, you probably work in some sort of office where you're sitting down all day, right? Or you take car everywhere, so you do need to go somewhere, you do need to travel between places, but you just take the car everywhere. And obviously, if you live in a big city, maybe you live in America, things are not close, and you do need to take the car. But taking that out of the equation, okay, cool, that's fine. You can't get around that. What you can get around is maybe if you do work from home or you work in an office, finding a way to do steps during the day is really fucking important. You have to do 10 to 12,000 steps per day. Okay, you have to do this 10 to 12,000 steps because it burns an extra 300 to 500 calories per day. And this is really important, especially in the start, because if we don't want to make those big compromises with our diet, obviously some compromise does need to be made, but if we don't want to make these huge compromises straight away, then we will need to do more cardio, at least more walking, to burn those calories, right? So this is really important, and it's a lot easier than cycling, swimming, or any of that, because the truth is, right, again, consistency is key, and I'll keep saying this. It's hard to be consistent with cycling or swimming or any of these things, because when are you able to realistically hop on a bike unless you go on, the gym bike, or when are you able to do all these like swimming or anything like this? Another thing is, when you do stuff like swimming or cycling, normally, for example, with cycling, people don't know how to pace it, so they'll cycle really, really hard, or they'll cycle really, really slow, and it doesn't work as well because you can't maintain a steady pace. Whereas when you walk, it's easier to maintain that steady pace to burn fat for a prolonged period of time. So that's why I recommend walking. Obviously, if you can do these for a long period of time, cycling or swimming can also be good options. They should be done in zone 2, so at a brisk pace, but still able to hold a conversation. And what you should do today, now, is you should look at your schedule and see where can I fit a walk in. And yeah, I promise you can do this. Like, it's not as difficult as you may think. People think, oh, I need to like set aside like three hours, maybe 2-3 hours. Like, within like an hour, you can pretty much do 10,000 steps. Like maybe an hour and a half. But yeah, it's completely possible. Obviously, it depends on your pace, but this should be your first goal. Now, the third thing, and this is probably something which you don't really hear very often, but it's that you don't really have a strong desire to lose fat or get into the shape that you think you want to get into. And I want to give you guys a quick story about what made me want to quit sugar. So when I just turned 16, I was having around 100 grams of processed sugar per day. Now, just for some context, for men, the recommended amount is 36 grams of processed sugar per day. That's not saying you should have that much, like it's good for you to have that much. That is a point at which if you exceed it, it's actually bad for you. So it's not something like, oh, for example, protein, right? It's not like if I consume more than the daily recommended amount, it's bad for me. But but with sugar, it's one of those things where you shouldn't have any to begin with, but 36 is like, if you exceed that, it's actually bad for you. And I was having 100 grams per day, if not more. And I calculated that just now because I remember that I used to eat really, really bad, like a lot of sugar. So yeah, I was averaging 100 grams of sugar per day. Then I remember reading an article about sugar and its link with cancer. And when I read this, it kind of led me down a rabbit hole, because when I read this, it kind of resonated with me a lot because I was in a situation of eating a lot of sugar. And while I didn't think it was a problem, because, I was young and everyone was saying, oh, you're young, it's fine. Because I knew I was having a lot of sugar, I thought, okay, let me read this. And it led me down a rabbit hole where I watched a documentary on Netflix about sugar. And I can't remember exactly what the name of it is, but hopefully it's still there. If you guys search like sugar on Netflix, you might find it. But I got pretty scared watching this, and because I realized I'm going down a path that by the time I'm 25, 30, I was gonna experience the negative side effects of this, which is pretty bad. It could have got really bad. So I stopped, and it was genuinely that easy. And it was like, it was one of those things where I just stopped, and people were like, oh, you've really like made a 180, like you really changed, because I was known as the guy with a sweet tooth that would have anything, and all of a sudden I'm like the complete opposite. And that happened 2 years ago, and now I'm at a point where I don't think I've had processed sugar for maybe a year and a half straight. And the point is, I only really stopped when I had a reason to. The truth is, you probably don't have a reason good enough to stop eating this bad food, because people act in a way that suits them today. And I'll give you another example, because I could say, go find an article that tells you everything bad about having high body fat and eating junk food, right? I could tell you to go and find that, but it's probably not going to have the same effect as it had on me, because I'm a very reactive person. If I see something that is not good and I need to change something, I will change it overnight, right? But a lot of people are not like this, because the same thing goes for something like vaping, right? People know vaping's bad. Like, it's not it's not a question. People that vape, generally speaking, know that vaping is not good for them, but they still do it because it feels good on the day-to-day basis, right? You hit this vape and I don't know, whatever. I've never fucking touched a vape in my life, but it does something for them, right? Whatever it may do. That's the reason they don't quit, because day to day it's nice, it's addictive, whatever it is. It's the same thing with you. You maybe know that it's not good for you to be eating the food you're eating or to be in the shape that you're in, but you haven't really done anything about it because day to day you're doing fine, and you don't realize the negative effects, because you haven't experienced the other side, right? You don't know what it's like to be, sub 10%, not even sub 10%, even 12 or 15%. You don't know how it's like to be like that. You don't know the mental clarity you get, the confidence you get. You don't know any of that because you haven't experienced it. And you think that the point you're at now is the best that you could be. And the truth is, yeah, you probably love the present moment. You love how things are now. But the thing is, in 20 years, whether you're 40 years old, 50, 60, whatever age you may be, in 20 years, that is going to be the present moment. You will then be in the present moment when you're 40 or 50. There will come a time where that is the present moment in your life. And then you'll realize, then you'll sit there and realize, okay, I need to make a change now, right? Because then it's a problem for you in the present moment. So eating junk food or vaping or whatever bad habit you may have, it's not a problem in the present moment. It hasn't presented itself as a bad thing. But in 15 or 20 years, in the present moment, it will be a bad thing. And then you'll want to make a change, but then it may be too late. And so the point is, you're better off doing yourself a favor and making the change now, rather than later. Now, I don't know what will work for you, but you need something to scare you. You need something to realize this is not good. And I know people who have got this realization in the worst way possible, which is like having a heart attack. And you don't want to get to that point where that's how you're realizing, so for me, it was finding articles, finding documentaries that made me realize how bad this thing was, right? And then making a change. But whatever makes you want to make that change is going to be different for different people, right? But just finding a reason as to why this is important to you will make you do it more than anything, right? So that's probably the most important thing.